Welcome to the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. I am your host, Scott Aaron, and each and every week I'm going to come to you with short, simple, and powerful tactics of how you can grow your network marketing business, brand, bank account, and impact on those around you. And just remember, network marketing is not easy, but it can be made easy with simple steps to create the success that you truly deserve. So, Ginger, welcome to today's episode. And again, my listeners have been hearing this, that there's really not an episode that I don't get excited for, but there are certain episodes where I'm very inspired because when worlds collide, so to speak, when people are living a certain way and they're doing business a certain way, as I do, being very focused on human connection and building those relationships, and stumbling upon someone on LinkedIn of all places that is doing the same thing as me, it's absolutely imperative and important to get them on the show so they can share some of the things that they have learned. So with that, Ginger, welcome to the episode. And the other thing that I want to piggyback off of that is that for my audience that is not familiar with Ginger Johnson and who she is and what she does, please introduce yourself to the audience. But most importantly, what was your big aha moment of entrepreneurship when that spark was lit for you?
Yeah, why don't you start with a smaller question, Scott? It was early 2000s, and I was at the top of a heap of a hardware dealership, Ace dealerships. They are dealerships, not franchises. I was at the top of the heap. I was a store manager in a multi-store unit chain, and I really had my come to Jesus moment, Scott, where I loved the retail setting. I love taking care of people. The connection that happens in a retail establishment is magic because they're coming in looking for solutions for their lives. That's what we do, right? We find solutions. We help them connect two dots. And I was at the top of that heap. And at the same time, I knew I needed to walk away for my own well-being. And so it was one of the two hardest career decisions I've ever made. And I did it. And that's when I gave myself the permission to take a month off, to decompress. I hadn't read a book in a year and a half, Scott. Like, that's unheard of for me. And I slept and I ate and I read and everything. And after a month was done on February 1st, 2003, I got myself up. I'm like, all right, what's next? Literally, there was that why in the road. If I risk working for somebody else, what is that? Or do I consider working for myself? What is that? That's what I explored. Suffice to say, several weeks later, I chose the self route after dabbling with some other people, and I've been off and running ever since.
So for people that aren't familiar with your work and what you do, give a brief overview of who Ginger Johnson is and what she does for other people.
That's a big question too. I am of Midwest roots in the United States of America. I have felt pretty darn fortunate to have the life I have. Definitely worked hard, worked my butt off, like yourself, Scott, like a lot of your listeners. Working hard, paying attention to life. That's what working hard means to me. And really looking at the opportunities. I've lived in 8 different states because we have a remarkable country. We have a remarkable world. And so I come from that. I've done a bunch of different things. I've taught middle school, so I can handle any room. I've been a firefighter, hardware retail, bread store, all kinds of different things because, again, life is fascinating. There's all kinds of connections to be made, as you well know, Scott, in all kinds of ways. So if we leave that open, if we're positive, objective, and willing, which is one of the POW that I extol, then everything's possible. So that's where I come from in a really short and condensed version. I teach leaders and CEOs how to be world-class connectors, starting with the why, mindset, and then the tactics. So it's the why and the how to connect on a human-to-human basis with purpose, with meaning, with an intention that doing this builds the life that I love by helping other people build the lives they want.
You know, it's so powerful to share. And something that I always tell people is when they start treating their business and their brand like a 401k instead of a lottery ticket.
That's brilliant.
Well,
Truth.
things really start to change when you understand the compound of interest, not only in money, but in impact and legacy. You know,
Yes.
when there's people have heard me say this before, but 75% of the people that win the lottery who have never had money before end up losing it within 2 years because they haven't worked that muscle. And I love what you're doing with CEOs and leaders, because one of the first big influences, I mean, I would say the two big first influences in my life when I started really getting into personal development, in 2013, were Robin Sharma and Simon Sinek, who are just both phenomenal human beings. They both talk about the meaning of leadership, and obviously Simon wrote a book called Start With Why. And it's not the how, it's not the what, it's the why, and then it leads to everything else. Why do you do what you do? Not what do you do, why do you do what you do? And I think that's such a integral part of any organization, whether it's working for Ace Hardware, whether it's managing your own business and your own employees, or general contractors. Understanding how to build and lead an organization to develop other leaders is probably one of the most undervalued things out there. Everybody wants to have this influence. Everybody wants to have this Instagram famous stuff going on, and it's all just it's all just noise to me. So what was the biggest change for you, going from all the various things that you did, from firefighting to the Ace Hardware to teacher, and then in 2004 2005, stepping into entrepreneurship to growing your own business and brand? What was the biggest challenge that you faced when you kind of crossed over the bridge to the other side?
Great question, Scott. What's the biggest challenge? Well, there's a lot of big ones. I would say that I came to realize, having been an employee and then being the company, that was a big mindset shift. Now, I'd always been given a lot of responsibility. I've been super fortunate. I've had amazing bosses. I've had some zingers. It's not judging the person. It's the wrong situation, and really removing yourself from that, not holding a grudge, and not using that energy to stay knotted up. It's to flourish. So realizing that, okay, now it's all on me. Like, I get to do the payroll, I get to buy the supplies, I get to do this, I get to do all of it. And I loved it. One thing I remember, one of the biggest lessons I learned that's been incredibly positive for me, Scott, was what marketing was. Marketing to me is communication. So it's a natural that I'm a connector, just like you are, because communication to me is the fundamental level of what does it mean to connect with other people. So the biggest challenge was realizing that, everything is on me now. So what are all those moving parts? I took classes. I went to a SCORE workshop. I went to the different agencies where I was living, and I knew I needed to get smart, and I knew I needed to tap into resources. Rhonda Abrams, a world-renowned small business guru, she and I became casual friends. She's an expert in running a small business. And while I hate that term, because if your business is your life, there's nothing small about it, it is a wake-up call to realizing, who are all these other people in an organization that supported making the organization run? Now it's all on you. The very first person I hired was a CPA, because while I could figure out the numbers, I didn't want to. I wanted people to hire me for my magic, so I'm going to hire them for theirs.
And that's the big thing, is that I want to dive into this a little bit too, because coaching is one of those things that you and I both know has become a little bit saturated over the last few years. Everyone wants to be a coach. Everybody wants to teach someone something. And listen, this is not to put down the coaching world.
Absolutely. I know where you're going. Yeah.
You've been coaching for 17 years. I've been coaching since 1999, a little over 22 years. And the fact is that I was giving a keynote last September in California at a very high level mastermind. And I was talking about LinkedIn and the art of connecting and building your brand authentically. But the one thing that I said that I didn't realize how impactful it was, I said the best certification that anyone can get is called going through life. Because if you think about it, when you go through life and you come out on the other end more prosperous and abundant and successful, you've actually built a system and a blueprint to take someone else through that. And I think that's what you've done so beautifully, is that, you know, everyone asks us, well, how did you do it? How did you do it? And there's, I don't feel there's a how to. It's more of just like you said, it's kind of flowing through life. It's being very present and understanding and taking things day by day. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, could you go to the Procter and Gallagher Institute? Could you go take a leadership course from John Maxwell? Absolutely. And there's so much value and content there.
Right.
But there's a huge difference between going through life, going through ups and downs, crossing the bridge, creating success, and then building a platform around that to teach others that were in a similar situation as you how to get to where you are by basically following the recipe that you've written down, as opposed to someone saying, you know what, I want to do some life coaching. I'm going to pay $4,000 for this certification. I'm going to get the certification, and that's going to make me a good coach. Now, will you gain some knowledge? Absolutely. 100% you will get, because basically you're buying a program from people that have actually gone through it themselves, and it's a proof of concept. But the one thing that really makes the difference between a good coach and a world-class coach is really understanding what that person is going through, because you've gone through it yourself. So let's touch on that for a second, because you've learned a lot, not in your entire career, but in these last 17 years of working with people like I have. Talk to those people that are listening to this, that are thinking about coaching with people, that and they put so much weight on the quote unquote credentials of coaching before they end up doing it.
Oh, great question, Scott. I'm so glad you asked this.
Speak to that.
So we'll start up. One size doesn't fit all. Hear me, please. We don't all shop at the same store for the same shirt, for the same pants, for anything that's the same. We are also intrinsically different. So I love that you're talking about this. The foundation of where the person is coming from, I believe, is the most critical. They have to be empathetic, not compassionate, empathetic. Compassionate means you've been through the same thing. Empathetic means you can have sympathy for and have an understanding about. There's a huge difference there. It makes me crazy, Scott, when you see people selling services of any make and model, and they're so rigid. Yeah, it worked for them, but guess what? That's them. That's going to work for them, because just like you're saying, we all have our own journeys, right? So what works for one person won't necessarily work for the other. So huge piece of juice, as I call it, a lesson, a takeaway. Please make sure to do your diligence. Find out if you like credentials, fine, because there might be some validity to some of that. It means they've done the work. It means they've jumped the hoops or completed whatever. And some of those people are really, really in it to serve. I think some of the best coaches are the ones that do skill up, that do invest in their education like you, Scott, and then say, okay, where are you coming from? What's your story? Because then let's take from the arsenal of tools and skills and knowledge, and let's find out what best fits that person. One size never fits. It just makes me berserk. We say, we have to follow this framework. No, you don't. You don't. It's your choice. You and me probably both have what I call a grad school bunch of highly monetized learnings, manuals and binders and downloads and all of this stuff, right? We have a huge library. Like, it can feel overwhelming. But what I've learned to do, and what I would encourage all of everybody listening to do, is take what works for you, whether it's a book from the library or a $50,000 course. Figure out what piece of it works for you. Maybe there's a couple multiple pieces. For me, one of the things that's absolutely a deal maker is who else is involved. I want to meet other people like you, Scott. I want to meet other people like some of the listeners who are goers, doers, change makers, and they're not going to let somebody stand in their way. What they're looking for is those genuine connections that can help them be better by helping those other people too. It's definitely a peer raising the boats scenario. And then we take from those programs what best fits us, because we can keep coming back to them. Some of the stuff that I took 3, 4, 5 years ago is now really coming home to roost, and that's so exciting. Because you don't have the context for it when you read it maybe the first time or get it the first time. That's why we return to things over and over.
I love what you said about deal maker instead of deal breaker, because everyone's so used to saying, oh, that's a deal breaker, but a deal maker. And, I talk to a lot of people every week. Some end up stepping forward to work with me, and some don't. And it's a law of numbers thing. And I remember I spoke to someone last week, and we had a great intro call. And she was really interested in working with me because she said, listen, I could buy a virtual program, and then I would be, at my own mercy to actually go through it.
Mm.
And then she said, but I know hiring you, working with you one-on-one, not only am I getting your time, but the value is going to be there because you're gonna keep pushing me. And she goes, that's what I need. I need to be shown what to do. So we had a great conversation, and we had a follow-up call for a couple of days later. And I always send a confirmation the morning of, just to kind of remind people. And she wrote, confirmed, looking forward to talking tonight. And about 9 minutes before we were supposed to talk that night, I got a text message. And it was that dreaded text message where I call it the excuse train. Whether people realize it or not, people when they politely decline, they don't realize how many excuses they actually list in one text. Because what happens is our heart always knows what it wants, but our head sometimes gets in the way.
That's why we can't always listen to those voices, right?
Well, I remember, so there's a great movie called The Great Dictator. And this was it was from 1937. It was Charlie Chaplin's first speaking film. And so the premise of the story is he plays Hitler, and I think pre World War II. And he slips in his bathroom and hits his head on the sink and wakes up and doesn't remember who he is. So he doesn't remember being the dictator. So he sees all this chaos and all these bad things going on. And so basically, if you go to YouTube and just type in The Great Dictator's speech, it's about 4.5 minutes of gold. And he memorized it and just said it on the fly. Excellent. But there's so many nuggets in that. But he said one line. He goes, people think too much and they feel too little. And that was from, almost 80 years ago. And that has stuck with me, because when people think too much and they feel too little, they actually think themselves out of what they need to do. Right. And this person went on to say, I got to talk to my significant other because I have a prosperous mindset, but they don't. So now that person has revealed to me that they've crossed into one of the most dangerous territories to be in, and it's called the convincing zone, where you then have to convince that person in your life that I need to invest this money, I need to work with this person. And that's a recipe for disaster, because I always tell people, your word is your law. The way that what you say to someone, that is written in stone. And I always say to people, I understand, and I am completely understanding and sympathetic that in relationships, you do need to talk to your partner, spouse, who you're with, about when money is to be spent. That's without a question. But it's how that conversation is worded. When you ask someone for permission, you are giving that person the power. But when you let the person know, here is my intention of what I'm going to do, and here's what I need from you. I need your support. I need your backing. I need you to understand that I am ready to up-level my life and my business, and here's what I'm going to do, and I want you to support me with that decision. That is a completely different conversation than saying, can I? So, Ginger, you're a coach, you know all this. So for those people that are listening to this that have gone into that danger zone where they have to convince their spouse, their partner, of the investment they want to make in themselves, in someone else. Let's talk about that. How detrimental can that be for someone's personal growth?
Well, it certainly can put it on pause. It can freeze it. It can stop it. The it's a wow. This is a great conversation point, Scott. Really glad you asked. It's really what I call sticky. So the first thing I encourage people to think about is think about your life as your life. What if you were completely flying solo? Would you invest in yourself? Because that's what it is. It's an investment, not a spend. Just like you were talking about the lottery before. To invest is different than to spend. To spend means we don't keep track of it. Spending is like luck. We find a $5 bill on the sidewalk. That's sheer luck. It's like hope. We're waiting for somebody else. That's what you're talking about here. We're waiting for somebody else to validate our worth. No. While I totally understand the partnership, I have a fabulous husband who supports me. He did not understand for a while what I was interested in. And so what I did, and thankfully he was open. I'm super grateful for this. He was open, cautious. He actually came to some things with me, and I shared some of those parts with him. So I would let him see what I'm going to do, how it's going to benefit us, not just me, how this manifests for our household. It's a crutch. It's a cripple when somebody doesn't have the support of their spouse or their partner. I get it. Like, that would be horrible. At the same time, you are your most important person. So don't tell yourself excuses. Figure out a way you're going to make it work and make it work. That sounds really cold and absolute. We got one merry-go-round. That's it. That's it. You get to decide. And if you're not in the right spot, by all means, reach out to somebody like Scott, reach out to somebody like me. We will point you in some helpful directions to get you out of that spin cycle. We will try to help you. There are plenty of people who can help you through that. But the convincing, persuading, cajoling zone, oh, that's just sheer death. When you start listening to somebody else, when you start asking permission from somebody else, your value for yourself starts going down. You start to question and you start to doubt. No, be the seedling, be the blossom, push your way through, and you can get there. There's so many people that want to support you because they've been through a similar journey. The field is full of wildflowers blooming, and it's your turn. Don't try to convince somebody. Don't ask for their permission. Ask for their support. Absolutely 100% agree, Scott.
Sometimes you have to risk to reap the reward. But more so, Ginger, there's so many people that I've spoken to that have quote unquote made bad investments and it didn't work out. They had false promises, and that comes with anything. That's like going to a restaurant, hearing from a friend of yours, oh, it's an amazing meal, but you go there and it just doesn't taste as good as but does that mean you're never going out to dinner ever again? I'm never eating food again. That was a horrible meal. No, you chalk it up. That was an experience. And, I know that I'm never going back to that restaurant ever again.
Right.
The other thing is that what people need to understand, just like you said, you end up getting into this danger zone, and self-worth is absolutely everything. And there are blossoms everywhere. And I always say to people, you're not a tree, move. And most people are, they ground their roots so deep that not even a Category 5 hurricane could knock them over, because they're like, I'm stuck, I'm not moving, that's it, I'm done. And again, I've said this to people in the past, no one wakes up saying, you know what, I want to live a mediocre life. No one wakes up saying that. And it's so, we end up giving power away for no other reason but we're doubting our decision. So when someone is doubting a decision, the easiest thing to do is to just put it on someone else. So now you're weighing the balance of your investment in your future on someone that has absolutely no clue about who that person is, what they do, and the conversation that you had with them that got you interested in the first place. So now you're giving this person the opportunity to weigh in on your decision, never tasting the food. And all that's going to do is drive you away from making the right decision that you know in your heart instead of in your head. But here's what I also want to dive into. Like you, my wife is like the most supportive person ever. She is my biggest cheerleader. She pushes me when she needs to push me. We push each other. We grow businesses together.
She
And you have
probably
a very,
calls you on your stuff too, because
what's that? Oh, yeah,
the best
absolutely.
partnerships call you on what's not working as well.
So, and you have a very supportive husband, and obviously both of us, myself with my wife, you with your husband, we've had to work on that communication because
Of
communication is
course.
everything.
Of
But
course.
you started to touch on it. What about those people that really want to better their lives? They so badly want to get out of this rut and they want to start living that ideal life, but their spouse is not. Their spouse is content. Their spouse has basically, this is it. I'm good. It's fine. I don't need to do anything else. And they're not supporting them the way that they should. What does that person do?
Mm. That's a huge question.
And again, this is just,
Yes.
we're not condoning
Right. We're not
anything. We're not
advising. Yes.
suggesting anything. This
Right.
is,
Right.
this is mere suggestions
Right.
of how to communicate better with that person that truly doesn't
Right.
understand you and what you want to do.
Right. Right. Well, I'll give you a personal story to illustrate it. When I was in my early 20s, I married my practice husband. He's a good man. We had a great marriage for a number of years. And towards the end of those years, I started getting restless. I started feeling like something was off. And I would look at him and I think, well, it's not a blame game. Like, what's going on here? Well, when you take a leap of faith to partner with somebody for the rest of your life that early in life, holy buckets. We have no idea what we're really doing to make that commitment to ourselves. And what I realized was that I wanted to like take the leash off, open the gate and run. And he's a good person, but he wasn't willing to run with me. And he wasn't ready to run with me. He didn't want to run. He was fine, 4-letter word, where he was. I needed to respect that in him, even though I would say, well, help me out. Like, are you with me? And yes, 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 but it never matched what his actions never matched his words. And I thought I need to make a really hard decision here. And yet at the same time, Scott, it was a simple decision. Simple and easy are different. Once you make the decision, then you can go. Don't waste your time making the decision to make the damn decision. Make the damn decision and act. And if that person is not going to support you ultimately, like for me, I needed to change the relationship. Now, that is certainly one end of the spectrum. Did it have to go that way? Not necessarily. I wasn't willing to see my life flash behind my eyes and me not realize whatever was out there was possible. Even though I didn't know what it was, I just trusted myself and I valued myself enough to say, well, then if I go it alone, I go it alone, because eventually I will find my people and I'm going to keep going with this vision of me because I only get this once. And the last thing I want to be, Scott, and this be a piece of juice for everybody listening, do not settle. You are not a foundation of concrete. You need to be seasoned. You need to grow. You need to have a rock somewhere in your life. And that first rock is you. Is it hard? I'm not saying it's easy. But I am saying once you get super duper crystal clear on your own value, on your own worth, then it becomes easier, becomes more fluid. You find more of your people. You know this, Scott. Like attracts like. And in this case, mindset like attracts mindset like. I'm not asking. In fact, don't get in a room full of like-minded people. I hate that saying. Get in the room of similar mindset. That's completely different. We don't need a whole bunch of people that are saying the same thing. We don't need a whole bunch of people in agreement. What we need is a lively, robust debate. We need people, if you and I are in the same room together and we're talking about things, you're going to call me on some. Say, Ginger, what are you talking about? Last week you told me this and now you're backing out and you're saying that's okay? No, no, no. No, you need to get back on track and do that. And I could do the same thing. Those relationships need to become the rock. If they're a spouse, a partner, business, life, whatever it is. So it's not necessarily an easy choice. But to me, the harder choice is staying somewhere that isn't working, that isn't progressing, that's not serving my own personal mission and vision, which is to build a life I love, serving others just like you do, Scott.
Oh, that was beautiful. And I had two practice wives. And I'll be honest, my first relationship, I was young. I was in my mid-20s. I did not know what it meant to be a husband, and it's my emotional maturity wasn't there. And I don't put any blame. And, my second marriage, same thing. There is no, and this is the thing, that I have no shame. There's zero shame in the fact
There
that
shouldn't have to be. No.
I've been married twice. I don't regret, and I had long-term relationships in between those two marriages, and after that marriage, and even before Nancy, and I don't regret any of them. I learned so much from those people, because whether the relationship was good, bad, or indifferent,
Mhm.
they each one of them brought value to my life. There was a
Right.
lesson learned from, there was something good that came out of every single one of those relationships. Not, you know, did I agree with things with them? I mean, no one agrees on everything, but what I can tell you is that here's the thing, whether I was in 4 long-term relationships before I met my wife, or 2 marriages and 2 long-term relationships before I met my wife, they're all long-term relationships. And you're going to learn something from all of them. And the more that, and then the biggest change for me was when I knew that my emotional maturity was really starting to grow,
Mm,
is when I stopped playing the victim.
mm,
I stopped playing the victim. I stopped playing the blame game. I was open to communicating. I was willing to own up that I did something wrong, and didn't just brush it under the carpet and try to just get through the
right.
conversation as quickly as possible. Sit down, have an adult conversation, because life, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be difficult conversations that need to be had. So, well, number one, I appreciate your openness and your vulnerable share. Now, before we close out, there's one final question, but before we get to that, how can my listeners learn a little bit more about Ginger Johnson, what she does, and how they can connect with her?
Certainly. Thanks for asking, Scott. GingerJohnson.com is where the world can go to start the conversation. Like you, I am incredibly active on LinkedIn. It's a remarkable community. So I am on LinkedIn.com. You can look for the woman with a mohawk. And I am also on Twitter at Ginger Johnson, Instagram, Ginger the Connector, YouTube channel. But gingerjohnson.com will be the hub for everybody to start at. Newsletter, monthly connecting juice. You're going to be my guest one of these days, and we'll share that link when that's all wrapped up as well. So that's where they can go.
Amazing. All that, guys, will be in the show notes, and I highly encourage you to connect with this woman. She, from our first initial conversation to having this conversation now, she speaks the truth. She's honest. She's genuine. She's real. And you will get so much value just by following her on social media. So I highly encourage you to do that. So, Ginger, before we close out, last question, no wrong answer. What does success truly mean to you?
It's 5 years from now, Scott. I'm standing on my front porch in the Tetons, and it's snowy all around me because I love snow. And I'm looking out at this beautiful landscape. I've just had one amazing week being able to serve, being able to speak. It's my number one place I want to be, because it's the education of people's time and attention and connection. My husband's coming home. He just parked the plane in the hangar. My dogs are with me. Friends are coming over for dinner. Maybe it's you and Nancy. And life is really exactly what I want it to be. I've worked my butt off, continue to work my butt off, getting there, holding the intention of serving and building and growing and creating something that nobody else has ever done, still seeking education and advice and learning. I'm healthy, I'm fit, I sleep well, and I'm able to do the things that I really desire doing that have meaning for me. That's what success is. Is my bank account nice and fat? Yes, it is, because I believe that wealth is the word, not money. Wealth is a lifestyle mindset. And when you have that wealth in your health, in your friendships, in your bank account, you can do so many things. It's a tool. And so I want to have all that wealth around me, having created it, built it with wonderful people, great people like yourself, Scott, my spouse, and these other people who really want to know what it means to be connected one person at a time, on purpose, with purpose, to change the world.
I've done close to 200 of these episodes, and I would say that's probably one of the top answers I have ever heard. And why is I am a very visual person.
Mm.
So I literally saw myself flying my plane into the hangar at your house
All right, we'll have room at the airport for you. Come
while
on in.
the buffalo were running around in the backyard, and we were having a great meal, drinking some great wine. And that's the thing, what I tell people, I don't have a vision board. I have a happening board in my
Ooh,
office,
I
like
like that.
what's going to happen. And I love your clarity, I love your vision, but more so just everything that you're about. It's I so resonate with it, and I'm just so grateful for you and the time that you spent with me today.
Scott, thank you. It's a pleasure. I can't wait to see where this crazy train takes us, where we choose to take it. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody for listening. Keep coming back for more.
Absolutely. So, guys, all the information on how to connect with Ginger will be in the episode. And as always, I encourage you, if you really resonate with this episode, leave a 5-star rating and review. Let us know what you loved most. Connect with Ginger. So, please enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again so much for checking out this week's episode. And if you can, head over to iTunes, search for Network Marketing Made Simple, leave me a 5-star rating, basic review. I would be grateful for all of the support you guys can give me. And again, if you'd be interested in learning more how to utilize LinkedIn to grow your business, your brand, and your bank account, head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net. Fill out the form for your free 15-minute discovery call so I can learn more about you, your business, and how we can work together. And again, thank you guys so much. Grateful for you all, and I'll see you next time.